Daniel looked at Lyris for a long moment before he spoke. She was sitting up now, no longer pressed against the wall like a trapped animal. Her huge dark eyes were open and curious. She was still scared, he could tell, but she was also something else. She was interested. "What do you want to know?" he asked. "Everything," Lyris said. "The stories we tell about your kind, they cannot all be true. No species could be as terrible as the stories say. But they cannot all be false either. So tell me the truth. What are humans really?" Daniel sat down on his cot and thought about how to answer. How do you explain an entire species? How do you describe billions of people with one story? "We come from a planet called Earth," he began. "It is a small blue world, mostly covered with water. You are right that it is dangerous. Our sun burns us. Our weather can kill us. Our animals hunt us. Even the smallest creatures, things you cannot see without special tools, can make us sick and end our lives." "Then how did you survive?" Lyris asked. "How did any of you survive long enough to become intelligent?" "We adapted," Daniel said. "That is the human way. When something tried to kill us, we found a way to fight back. We could not run as fast as the animals that hunted us, so we learned to run longer. We chased our prey until it fell from exhaustion. We could not fight with claws or fangs, so we made weapons from stone and wood. We could not survive the cold, so we made fire. We could not fly, so we built machines that could." He paused and looked at his hands. They were rough and scarred, the hands of a survivor. "Humans are not strong because we are perfect," he continued. "We are strong because we refuse to accept our limits. Every problem is just a challenge waiting to be solved. Every obstacle is just a wall waiting to be climbed. That is what makes us human. Not our bodies or our minds, but our will." Lyris listened without speaking. Her 4 hands were folded in her lap. Her dark eyes never left his face. "The other species fear us," Daniel said. "I know this. I have felt it my whole life, ever since humanity joined the galactic community. They look at us and see monsters. They see a species that conquered a death world and reached for the stars. They see a people who never stop, never quit, never give up. And that terrifies them." "It terrifies me too," Lyris admitted quietly. "Or it did. When I saw you standing there with your weapon, I thought I was going to die. I thought you would kill me without a second thought." "Why would I do that?" Daniel asked. "Because that is what the stories say. They say humans kill for sport. They say humans enjoy causing pain. They say humans are incapable of mercy or kindness." Daniel shook his head slowly. "Some humans are cruel. I will not lie to you about that. There are bad people among us, just like there are bad people among every species. But most of us are not monsters. Most of us just want to live our lives, raise our families, and find happiness. We are not so different from you." Lyris was quiet for a long time. Outside, the wind had died down. The moon was calm for now, but another storm would come soon. There was always another storm on Velar 7. "Tell me about your family," Lyris said finally. "Do you have people waiting for you back home?" The question hit Daniel harder than he expected. He had tried not to think about home. Thinking about home made the loneliness worse. "I have a sister," he said. "Her name is Grace. She is younger than me by 3 years. She has red hair and green eyes and a laugh that sounds like music. When I left for this mission, she made me promise to come back. She made me promise to be at her wedding. Is she married now?" Lyris asked. "I do not know," Daniel said. "It has been almost a year. Anything could have happened. She probably thinks I'm dead." "I am sorry," Lyris said, and she sounded like she meant it. Daniel shrugged. "It is not your fault. It is not anyone's fault. Ships crash. People get lost. That is just how the universe works. But you have not given up hope, Lyris said. You still think you might see her again? Yes, Daniel admitted. I do. Even when there is no reason for hope, I still hope. That is the human way too. They sat in silence for a while. The air filter hummed. The emergency lamp cast soft shadows on the metal walls. For the first time since Lyris had crashed through his airlock, the room felt almost peaceful. I should tell you how I got here, Lyris said finally. You deserve to know. Daniel nodded. Only if you want to. I was a scientist, she said. A researcher. I studied ancient civilizations, the species that lived and died before the Galactic Council was formed. My ship was investigating a signal from an old probe when we hit a gravitational wave. The ship was torn apart. I was the only one in the escape pod bay when it happened. Her voice grew quiet. There were 47 people on that ship. Scientists, engineers, crew members, friends. They're all dead now. I am the only one left. I'm sorry, Daniel said. I watched the ship break apart, Lyris continued. I saw the pieces falling into space. I saw the bodies floating in the void. And then my escape pod launched, and I was alone. She looked at her hands. The pod had no navigation system. It had no communication system. It just fell toward the nearest planet, which was this moon. I crashed in the wastelands, 3 days' walk from here. I have been wandering ever since, looking for shelter, looking for water, looking for any reason to keep living. And then you found me, Daniel said. And then I found you, Lyris agreed. The monster from my childhood nightmares. The human. She looked up at him, and there was a sad smile on her delicate face. But you are not a monster, are you, Daniel? You are just a man. Lost and alone, just like me. Just like you, Daniel agreed. They sat together in the shelter as the hours passed. They talked about their homes, their families, their dreams. They talked about the things they missed and the things they feared. They talked about the future, even though neither of them knew if they had one. And somewhere in that long conversation, something changed between them. The fear did not disappear completely, not yet. But it began to fade. It began to be replaced by something else. Understanding Lyris learned that humans were not monsters. They were survivors, yes. They were tough and stubborn and sometimes dangerous. But they were also capable of kindness and mercy and love. They were people, just like her people. And Daniel learned that he was not as alone as he thought. Even on this dead moon, at the edge of known space, he had found a friend. When night fell, they each went to their own side of the shelter. But the distance between them felt smaller now. The wall of fear and suspicion had begun to crack. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tomorrow would bring new storms. But tonight, for the first time in 11 months, Daniel did not feel alone, and for the first time since her ship died, Lyris felt something she had thought was lost forever. She felt hope. The Valorian woman did not sleep that first night. She sat in the corner with her back against the wall and her 4 arms wrapped tight around her body. Her huge dark eyes never closed. They watched Daniel every second, following his every move like he was a wild animal that might attack at any moment. Daniel did not sleep either. He sat on the other side of the room and waited. He knew that anything he did would scare her more. If he moved toward her, she would think he was attacking. If he spoke too loudly, she would think he was threatening her. So he sat still and quiet and let her watch him. The storm outside lasted through the night. The acid rain beat against the walls. The wind screamed like a living thing. Inside the shelter, the only sounds were the hum of the air filter and the soft whimper of a terrified alien. When morning came, the storm began to fade. The rain slowed to a drizzle. The wind dropped to a whisper. Pale gray light came through the small window. Daniel stood up slowly. The Valorian woman pressed herself harder against the wall. Her breathing got faster. Her eyes got wider. "I am going to get water," Daniel said in a calm, quiet voice. "I am going to put some near you. You need to drink. The air on this moon takes the water out of your body very fast. If you do not drink, you will die." She did not answer. She just watched him with those huge, frightened eyes. Daniel walked to his water tank. He filled a metal cup. He walked halfway across the room and set the cup on the floor. Then he backed away to his side of the shelter. "It is clean," he said. "I filtered it myself. It will not hurt you." The cup sat on the floor between them. The Valorian woman stared at it like it was a trap. Hours passed. The cup did not move. The woman did not move. Daniel went about his normal routine. He checked his equipment. He ate a small meal of dried mushrooms. He read from his tablet. He pretended not to watch her, but he always kept her in the corner of his eye. By midday, she was shaking. Her purple skin had turned pale. Her lips were dry and cracked. She was dying of thirst, but she was too scared to drink. Daniel sighed. He picked up the cup, took a long drink from it, and set it back down. "See?" he said. "Not poison. Just water." He went back to his side of the room and sat down. Another hour passed. Then, slowly, painfully, the Valorian woman crawled forward. She reached out with one trembling hand and grabbed the cup. She pulled it back to her corner and drank it all in 3 quick gulps. Daniel felt something loosen in his chest. At least she would not die of thirst. "My name is Daniel," he said again. "What is your name?" She did not answer for a long time. Then, in a voice so soft he could barely hear it, she said, "Lyris." "Lyris," Daniel repeated. "That is a nice name. How did you get here, Lyris? How did you find my shelter?" She shook her head. She was not ready to talk yet. Daniel nodded. "That is okay. You do not have to tell me. Just rest. You are safe here." She made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Safe with a human?" "Yes," Daniel said simply. "Safe with a human." The second day was a little better. Lyris accepted food when Daniel offered it. She ate the dried mushrooms without complaint, though he could tell she did not like the taste. She drank more water. Some color came back to her skin, but she still watched him like he might attack at any moment. She still flinched when he moved too fast. She still pressed herself against the wall whenever he got too close. On the third day, another storm rolled in. This one was even worse than the first. The shelter shook so hard that pieces of metal fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered and went out. In the darkness, Daniel heard Lyris cry out in fear. "It is okay," he said. "Just a power failure. I can fix it." He fumbled for his emergency lamp and turned it on. The small light filled the room with a weak yellow glow. He saw Lyris huddled in her corner, all 4 arms covering her head. "The storm will pass," Daniel said. "They always do. This shelter has survived worse than this. How do you know?" Lyris asked. Her voice was muffled by her arms. "Because I built it," Daniel said. 11 months ago, I crashed on this moon. I had nothing but a broken ship and my own 2 hands. I built this shelter from the wreckage. I have lived through 100 storms. I will live through this one too." Lyris slowly lowered her arms. She looked at him in the dim light, and for the first time, there was something other than fear in her eyes. There was curiosity. "You built all of this?" she asked. "By yourself?" "Yes, but how?" "This moon is poison. The air is poison. The water is poison. The storms can kill in minutes. How did you survive?" Daniel shrugged. "I am human. We survive. It is what we do." Lyris was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "The stories about your kind. They say you come from a death world. A planet so dangerous that everything on it is trying to kill everything else. They say your bodies are made of stone and your hearts are made of ice. They say you feel no pain and no fear. Daniel laughed. It was the first time he had laughed in months. The sound was rough and strange in his throat. "We feel pain," he said. "Trust me, we feel plenty of pain. And we feel fear too. But we do not let those things stop us. When something hurts us, we learn from it. When something scares us, we face it. That is the human way. But why?" Lyris asked. "Why not just give up? Why not accept death when it comes?" Daniel thought about the question. He thought about the day his ship crashed, the day he should have died. He thought about all the days after that, the days of hunger and thirst and pain, the days when giving up would have been so easy. "Because life is precious," he said finally. "Every day is a gift, even the bad days, even the painful days. As long as I'm alive, there is hope. Hope that tomorrow will be better. Hope that I will see my home again. Hope that I will matter to someone, somewhere. I cannot give up on that hope. It is all I have." Lyris stared at him across the dark room. The storm raged outside, shaking the walls, screaming in the wind. But inside the shelter, something had changed. "You are not what the story said," Lyris whispered. "No," Daniel agreed. "I am not." She was quiet for a long time after that. The storm passed. The lights came back on. Daniel fixed the damage and went back to his routine. But that night, for the first time since she arrived, Lyris closed her eyes and slept, and when she woke up, she did not press herself against the wall. She did not wrap her arms around her body. She sat up and looked at Daniel with those huge dark eyes, and she said the words he had been waiting to hear. "Tell me about your people. Tell me about humans. I want to know the truth." 2 weeks passed on Velar 7. The storms came and went like angry visitors, pounding the shelter with acid rain and screaming wind. But inside the metal walls, Daniel and Lyris had built something stronger than any shelter. They had built trust. Lyris no longer sat in the corner with her arms wrapped around her body. She moved freely around the shelter now, helping Daniel with his daily tasks. She learned how to check the air filters and test the water supply. She learned where Daniel kept his food stores and how to prepare the dried mushrooms so they did not taste quite so terrible in return. Daniel learned about her people. He learned that Valorians valued knowledge above all else. They believed that understanding the universe was the highest purpose of life. They built great libraries that floated between the stars, filled with the wisdom of 1,000 generations. They studied everything, from the smallest particle to the largest galaxy. "But you never studied humans," Daniel said one evening as they shared a meal. "You just made up stories about us." Lyris looked down at her food. "We were afraid. The few records we had of your species described creatures of impossible strength and endless aggression. We thought it was safer to stay away and hope you would never find us. And now?" Daniel asked. Lyris smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "Now I know better. You are strong, yes. You are stubborn, but you are also kind. You could have killed me when I burst through your door. You could have let me die of thirst. Instead, you shared your shelter and your food and your stories. You treated me like a person, not an enemy." "You are a person," Daniel said simply. "Why would I treat you any other way?" The question seemed to surprise her. She thought about it for a long moment before answering. "Among my people, there are some who treat others badly because they are different. Species who look strange or act strange are often feared and avoided. We call ourselves civilized, but we are not always kind. Humans are the same," Daniel admitted. "We have a long history of treating each other badly because of small differences. Skin color, language, religion. We have fought wars over things that do not matter at all. But we also have a history of growing past those mistakes. We learn. We change. We become better. Do you think the galaxy can change? Lyris asked. Do you think the other species will ever stop fearing humans? Daniel thought about the question. He thought about all the times he had felt the cold stares of aliens who saw him as a monster. He thought about the dangerous jobs and lonely missions that humans were given because no one else wanted them around. I think change is possible, he said finally. But it will not be easy. It will take time and patience and proof. We will have to show them, one person at a time, that we are not what they think we are. That night, the worst storm yet began to build on the horizon. Daniel watched it through the window, a wall of purple and black rolling across the wasteland. Lightning cracked inside the clouds like angry veins. The wind began to howl. This one is bad, Daniel said. We need to secure everything. They worked together, tying down loose equipment and reinforcing the walls with extra support beams. Lyris used all 4 of her arms to hold things in place while Daniel welded them together. They moved like a team, each knowing what the other needed without having to ask. The storm hit at midnight. It was worse than anything Daniel had experienced in his 11 months on the moon. The shelter shook like a toy in the hands of an angry child. Metal screamed against metal. The lights went out. Emergency alarms filled the darkness with red flashing and loud beeping. Then there was a terrible sound. The sound of tearing metal. The outer wall, Daniel shouted over the noise. It is breaching. We need to patch it now or the acid will get in. He grabbed his emergency suit and began pulling it on. Lyris watched him with wide, frightened eyes. You cannot go out there, she said. The storm will kill you. If I do not go out there, the breach will kill us both, Daniel replied. He sealed his helmet and picked up his welding tools. Stay here. Keep away from the breach. I will be back as soon as I can. He cycled through the airlock and stepped into hell. The wind hit him like a giant fist. He grabbed onto the outer handle and held on as his feet left the ground. Acid rain sizzled against his suit, eating into the protective coating. He could feel the heat through the layers. He had maybe 20 minutes before the suit failed. He pulled himself along the outside of the shelter, fighting the wind with every step. The breach was on the far side, a jagged tear in the metal where a piece of flying debris had punched through. Purple light from the lightning showed him the damage. It was bad, but he could fix it. He had to fix it. Daniel worked with his hands burning inside his gloves and his muscles screaming from the effort. He welded patch after patch over the tear, sealing it against the acid and the wind. The storm tried to pull him away. The lightning tried to blind him. The rain tried to burn through his suit, but he was human. And humans did not quit. 16 hours later, the storm finally passed. Daniel crawled back through the airlock and collapsed on the floor. His suit was ruined, eaten away by the acid, until it was barely holding together. His left arm was burned badly from a spot where the acid had gotten through. Several of his ribs were cracked from being thrown against the wall. He could not move. He could barely breathe. He lay on the cold metal floor and waited to see if he would live or die. Then he felt gentle hands on his body. 4 gentle hands, carefully removing his damaged suit. Lyris was there, her huge dark eyes filled with worry. She had laid out all of his medical supplies. She had warm water ready and clean bandages. You saved us, she said as she worked on his wounds. You went out into that storm and you saved us both. That is what humans do, Daniel managed to say through the pain. No, Lyris said, and her voice was firm. That is what you do, Daniel. You, not some abstract species. You. She looked into his eyes, and he saw something there that he had not seen before. Not fear, not curiosity. Something deeper. Thank you she said. "Thank you for being real. Thank you for being different from the stories. Thank you for showing me that I was wrong about your kind." Daniel tried to smile, but the pain made it difficult. "You are welcome. Just do me a favor and tell people the truth when you get home. Tell them we are not monsters." "I will," Lyris promised. "I will tell everyone. I will spend the rest of my life telling them if I have to. Because you showed me something important, Daniel. You showed me that fear is a poor foundation for judgment. And you deserve better than fear." She finished treating his wounds and helped him to his cot. He was exhausted, hurt, barely conscious. But as he drifted off to sleep, he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt like he mattered, not as a human, not as a survivor, but as Daniel Carter, one person among billions who had made a difference to one life. And sometimes that was enough. 6 weeks had passed since Lyris had burst through Daniel's airlock. His burns had healed, leaving new scars to join the old ones. His ribs still ached when he moved too fast, but he was alive. They were both alive. The shelter had become something more than a place to survive. It had become a home. Daniel and Lyris had fallen into a comfortable routine. They woke with the pale gray dawn. They shared meals and stories. They worked together to maintain the shelter and gather supplies. They watched storms roll across the wasteland and talked about everything and nothing. But they both knew this could not last forever. "I have been thinking," Lyris said one morning. "My escape pod had a long-range transmitter. It was damaged in the crash, but I might be able to repair it using parts from your ship." Daniel felt something twist in his chest. A transmitter meant rescue. Rescue meant Lyris would leave. And then he would be alone again. "That sounds like a good idea," he said, keeping his voice steady. "We should try it." They spent the next 3 weeks working on the transmitter. Daniel showed Lyris where the useful parts were buried in his crashed ship. Lyris used her scientific knowledge to rebuild the damaged circuits. It was slow, careful work, made harder by the storms that kept driving them back into the shelter. But finally, on a calm morning with clear gray skies, the transmitter blinked to life. "It is working," Lyris said, staring at the small device like she could not believe it. "It is actually working." She activated the distress beacon. A tiny red light began to pulse, sending a signal out into the vast darkness of space. Somewhere, far away, a ship might hear it. Someone might come. How long until they arrive? Daniel asked. "It depends on who hears the signal first," Lyris said. "It could be days. It could be weeks. But someone will come. My people monitor these frequencies. They will not ignore a Valorian distress call." They sat together and watched the little red light blink. Pulse, blink, pulse. A tiny heartbeat reaching out to the stars. "What will happen when they come?" Daniel asked. "When they find a human here." Lyris was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to face him, her huge dark eyes meeting his. "I will protect you," she said. "I will tell them the truth. I will tell them that you saved my life, that you are not a monster, that you are my friend." "They might not listen," Daniel said. "They might be too afraid." "Then I will make them listen," Lyris said. Her voice was firm, stronger than he had ever heard it. "I will not let them hurt you, Daniel. You have shown me what humans really are. It is time the rest of the galaxy learned the truth." 3 weeks later, a ship appeared in the sky. It came down through the purple clouds like a silver bird, its engines burning bright against the gray morning. It was a Valorian rescue cruiser, sleek and beautiful, covered with symbols that Daniel did not recognize. They watched it land from the shelter door. Lyris stood beside Daniel, her 4 hands clenched into fists at her sides. "Are you ready?" she asked. "No," Daniel admitted, "but I am going anyway." They walked out together to meet the ship. The acid wind tugged at their clothes. The gray dust swirled around their feet. They stopped 100 meters from the cruiser and waited. The door opened. Soldiers poured out, a dozen of them, all carrying weapons that gleamed in the pale light. They spread out in a half circle, their guns pointed at Daniel. He raised his hand slowly, showing them he was not armed. His heart was pounding, but he kept his face calm. He had survived a death world. He had survived 11 months alone on a poisoned moon. He was not going to let fear beat him now. An officer stepped forward. She was tall for a Valorian, with silver hair pulled back in a tight knot. Her uniform was covered with medals and badges. Her face was hard as stone. "Lyris of House Valoran," the officer said. "We received your distress signal. We came as quickly as we could." "Thank you, Commander," Lyris said. "I am grateful for the rescue." The commander's eyes moved to Daniel. They were cold and suspicious. "And what is this?" "This is Daniel Carter," Lyris said. "He is a human, and he saved my life." A ripple of fear went through the soldiers. Their weapons tightened in their grips. The commander's hand moved toward her own gun. "Step away from the creature," the commander ordered. "It is dangerous." "No," Lyris said. She did not move. "He is not dangerous. He's kind and brave and good. He found me dying in the wasteland and brought me to his shelter. He shared his food and water with me. He risked his life to protect me from a storm that would have killed us both." "Lyris," the commander said, her voice tight. "You do not understand. Humans are monsters. The histories are wrong," Lyris interrupted. "I have lived with this human for 6 weeks. I have seen him at his best and his worst. I have watched him bleed and suffer and never give up. He is not a monster. He is a person, and he deserves to be treated like one." The commander stared at her for a long moment. Then she looked at Daniel, really looked at him, like she was seeing him for the first time. "Is this true?" she asked him. "Did you really save her life?" Daniel lowered his hand slowly. "I did what anyone would do," he said. "I helped someone who needed help. That is all." "That is not what our stories say about your kind," the commander said. "Then maybe your stories need to be rewritten," Daniel replied. Silence fell over the landing site. The wind whispered through the gray dust. The soldiers waited, their weapons still raised, uncertain what to do. Then the commander did something unexpected. She lowered her hand from her gun. She straightened her back. She looked at Daniel with something that might have been respect. "You will come with us," she said. "Both of you. We will take you to the council. They will decide what happens next." "Will I be allowed to speak?" Daniel asked. "Will I be allowed to tell my story?" The commander hesitated. Then she nodded. "Yes, you will have that chance." Lyris reached out and took Daniel's hand. Her 6 fingers wrapped around his 5, and she squeezed gently. "We will tell them together," she said. "We will show them that humans and Valorians can be friends. We will prove that fear is not the only way." Daniel squeezed back. "Thank you," he said, "for believing in me." "Thank you," Lyris replied, "for giving me something to believe in." They walked toward the ship together, hand in hand, alien and human united against centuries of fear and misunderstanding. The soldiers watched them pass with confused eyes. The commander followed behind, her face thoughtful. It would not be easy. Daniel knew that. There would be councils and debates, and people who refused to listen. There would be fear and anger and suspicion. The road ahead was long and uncertain. But for the first time, there was a chance. A chance for humans to earn their place among the stars. A chance for the galaxy to see them as they really were. A chance for understanding to replace fear. And it had all started with a storm, a shelter, and 2 people who chose to see each other as friends instead of enemies. As the ship lifted off from Valor 7, Daniel looked out the window at the gray wasteland below. He thought about the shelter that had been his home for so long. He thought about all the storms he had survived. He thought about the future that waited ahead. He did not know what would happen next. But for the first time in a very long time, he was not facing it alone. And that, he decided, was worth more than all the hope in the universe. Beside him, Lyris smiled. The stars were waiting, and they were going to meet them together. The human fleet burst into the battle like wolves joining a hunt. Commander Mangan Price of the Ironclad opened a fleet-wide channel, her voice cutting through the chaos of combat. "Resolute, this is Commander Price. We received your signal and came as fast as we could. Hang tight, we are taking over." Jack Morrison slumped back in his chair. He had been fighting for 4 hours straight, watching his ship die piece by piece, expecting every moment to be his last. Now relief washed over him like a warm wave. "Understood, Ironclad. We are in bad shape, but still here. We can see that. Good work staying alive. Now watch how the big ships do it." The human fleet moved in perfect formation. They had trained together for years, fought together in countless exercises, and now they fought together for real. Each ship knew its role. Each captain trusted the others. They worked as a single unit, a pack of predators against a collection of bullies. The Scrath fleet tried to reorganize. The Dreadnought commander shouted orders, trying to bring his cruisers into defensive positions. But it was too late. The humans were already among them. The Ironclad hit the nearest Scrath cruiser with a full broadside. Railgun rounds and missiles tore through the enemy ship in seconds. Before the debris had finished spinning, the Ironclad was moving to its next target. The destroyer Firebrand took on 2 cruisers at once, dancing between their shots with a speed that seemed impossible for a ship its size. The frigate Quicksilver made strafing runs against Scrath engines, crippling ships and leaving them for the heavier vessels to finish. The medical ship Hope's Light stayed back, waiting to help the wounded. But even it carried weapons, and its crew was ready to fight if needed. On the bridge of the Resolute, Jack watched the battle unfold with exhausted eyes. His crew was too tired to cheer, but they watched with silent satisfaction as the fleet they had called came to save them. "The Scrath are breaking formation," Emma reported. Her voice was hoarse from hours of shouting orders. "They are trying to run. Let them go? Some of them? The cruisers, maybe. But the Dreadnought stays." Jack looked at the massive Scrath warship. It was the flagship, the heart of the enemy fleet. Its commander had sworn to destroy them. He had failed. "Commander Price," Jack said over the radio, "the Dreadnought tried to kill us. And the Valari. I would take it kindly if you made sure it never tries again." "With pleasure, Captain." Ironclad and Wing target the Dreadnought. All ships fire at will. 5 human warships turned toward the Scrath Dreadnought. The huge vessel tried to flee, but human ships were faster. They surrounded it like hunters around wounded prey. The Dreadnought fought back. Its weapons were powerful, and it managed to damage one of the human destroyers before the end. But it was 1 ship against 5, and those 5 ships were crewed by humans who had just watched their friends suffer for hours. The end came quickly after that dot when the Dreadnought finally broke apart, its fires reflecting off the nebula clouds like a second sun. The remaining Scrath ships fled. They scattered in all directions, abandoning their dead, forgetting their pride, thinking only of survival. The battle was over. On the Resolute, Katie O'Brien led her medical team through the damaged corridors. The ship was a mess. Walls were blackened with burn marks. Cables hung from broken panels. The smell of smoke filled every room, but her crew was alive. Most of them died. She found Captain Jack on the bridge, still in his command chair. He had not moved in hours. When she tried to examine him, she discovered why. His left side was covered in blood from a wound he had hidden from everyone. "Jack, you idiot," Katie said as she worked to stop the bleeding. "You were hurt this whole time?" "Could not leave the chair," Jack said weakly. "Crew needed me." "Your crew needs you alive, you stubborn man." Katie injected him with painkillers and called for a stretcher. "You are going to the medical bay." "No arguments. Would not dream of it." Emma took command while Katie took Jack away. Daniel had taken shrapnel to his leg during the battle, but refused to leave his station until the fighting stopped. Now, he finally let a medic treat him. Ben Carter had a broken arm that he had splinted himself 3 hours ago. Luis Vega had burns on his hands from repairing live power conduits. Everyone was hurt. Everyone had kept fighting anyway. That was what humans did. Ambassador Thelen came aboard the Resolute while the medical teams worked. The human ship looked like it had been through a war, because it had. He walked through corridors filled with wounded crew members, past walls covered in damage. Toward the medical bay where Captain Jack was being treated. He found Emma Collins standing guard outside. "How is he?" Thelen asked. "He will live. Lost a lot of blood, but Katie says he is too stubborn to die." "That does not surprise me." Emma looked at the Valari ambassador. She had dark circles under her eyes and blood on her uniform, but she stood straight and alert. "Your ship, is it safe?" "Thanks to your crew. Thanks to your fleet. Thanks to humans." Thelen paused. "May I ask you something, Lieutenant?" "Of course. Why? Why did you fight so hard for us?" "We are strangers. We have avoided your kind for generations. We called you monsters. Why would you almost die for people like us?" Emma thought about the question. It was the same question Thelen had asked Jack days ago. She had heard the captain's answer, but now she wanted to give her own. "When I was young, my mother taught me something. She said that the measure of a person is not how they treat their friends. It is how they treat strangers in need. Anyone can be kind to people they love. It takes something more to be kind to people who fear you." That is a beautiful thought. It is an old human thought. We've been struggling to live up to it for thousands of years. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we are the monsters people think we are. But when it matters, when the choice is real, most of us try to be better. Thelen nodded slowly. "I think I understand. You fight not because you enjoy violence, but because you will not stand by while others suffer." Something like that. Also, the Scrath made us angry, and humans do not react well to anger. For the second time since meeting humans, Thelen laughed. Commander Megan Price came aboard the Resolute later that day. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She shook hands with Emma and asked to speak with Captain Jack as soon as he was awake. "He saved a Valari ship," Megan said, looking around at the damaged bridge, with 1 patrol vessel against 5 raiders. Then he held off a war fleet for 4 hours with a ship that should have been in dry dock. "He had good crew," Emma said. "He had human crew. There is no other kind that would have stayed." Megan looked at the view screen, where the gentle dawn floated peacefully beside the human fleet. "The Valari are requesting formal diplomatic relations with Earth. First time in their history. That is good news." "It is. And they are crediting your captain and your crew. They say you showed them that Deathworlders can be heroes." Emma smiled tiredly. "We just did our job. Your job saved an entire species from thinking we are monsters. That seems like more than just a job to me." A week later, Jack Morrison woke in a proper hospital on the medical ship Hope's Light. His wound had been cleaned, treated, and sealed. He would carry a scar for the rest of his life, but he would live. Katie was sitting beside his bed when he opened his eyes. "Welcome back, Captain. You almost died 3 times. Only 3? I am getting better at this." "This is not funny, Jack. You scared all of us." "I know. I am sorry. Jack looked around the room. The crew? Everyone survived. Some injuries, but no deaths. We were lucky. We were good. Lucky helps, but good is what kept us alive. Katie handed him a datapad. You have messages. About 200 of them. From the crew, from Earth Command, from your family. And one from Ambassador Thelen. Jack read Thelen's message first. It was short and simple. Captain Morrison, my people have much to learn about humans. You showed us that the beings we feared most were the ones who would die to save us. When the galaxy speaks of Earth, I will make sure they know the truth. Deathworlders are not monsters. They are guardians. Thank you. Your friend, Thelen. Jack set down the datapad. He thought about the battle, about the fear and the pain, and the desperate hope that help would arrive. He thought about his crew, fighting with everything they had. He thought about the Valari, learning that the universe was not as simple as they believed. Katie, he said quietly, why do you think we do it? Fight for strangers. Risk everything for people we have never met. Katie considered the question. Because someone has to. Because if we do not, no one will. Because we are human, and that is what humans do. Jack nodded. It was as good an answer as any. Somewhere in the galaxy, a Scrath commander nursed his wounds and swore revenge. Somewhere else, Valari diplomats prepared to travel to Earth for the first time in history. And somewhere, on 100 worlds, stories spread about the Deathworlders who answered a distress call and fought against impossible odds to protect strangers. The stories all ended the same way. The humans came. The humans fought. The humans never gave up, because that is what Deathworlders do. And the galaxy would never forget it.